to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Good evening. Thank you for being in attendance tonight, and those in the room, and as well as those online. As I usually do, I'd like to introduce, if you are new to the audience, the folks around the table. So we have Christine Keller, our town clerk, John Paciotti, our town councilor, Stephanie Thibodeau, town councilor and vice chair, Michelle Flewelling, our town manager, Adam Lorette, town councilor, Peter Lawrence, town councilor and secretary, and myself, Matt Townsend, council chair. So the first order of business tonight are the public announcements. The details may be found at www.fairfieldme.com. Number one, the summer concerts in Memorial Park are held Fridays, 6 to 7:30 p.m. Through August 30th. Number two, the Lawrence Public Library comprehensive program details online and via the LPL social media. July 25th, that's tomorrow, 10 a.m., LPL, the 123rd anniversary celebration. August 20th, 10:30 a.m., the Medicare workshop, education on enrollment process and available options. And new this summer, the patron pass to the Coastal Maine Botanical Gardens. Call LPL for details. And children 18 and under, meal collaboration with MSAD 49, lunch 11:30 to 12, Monday through Friday, June 17th to August 16th. The second order of business, public hearings. Tonight, to hear from the public on a renewal request from SAPI North America Inc., the Somerset plant, to operate a solid waste facility on company-owned land off of Route 201 in the town of Fairfield.
Nobody in Zoom still?
Still nobody in Zoom.
Nobody.
Skip that part.
So I should have opened the hearing, but now I'll close the hearing.
Oh, no, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were waiting to
Yeah.
take over, but we do have.
Oh, good.
Staff is
There we go.
here.
I thought,
Yeah.
yeah, I was like
Sorry.
we should have somebody speaking.
Good evening. Members of the council, Michelle and Christine. My name is James Brooks. I'm the environmental manager at the Sappy Paper Mill. And what we have before you is a request to renew our solid waste facility license for our landfill up at our mill. And I'm just going to go over some of the facts about the mill. I've probably sent you reams of data and information about the operation of the mill and sort of a synopsis in the general overall application. But I can give you a quick thumbnail sketch. The landfill encompasses about 80 acres. It's lined. It has groundwater monitoring wells. We have what they call cells made up of 14 cells. Out of the 14, 13 have been constructed. 7 have been closed. 2 are partially closed. And we have 3 that are open that are operational. Last year, we built a cell and we're starting to fill it up. We spent probably $5 million to do that. And it's surprising when you see the base of the cell, it's actually 4 feet of material. Somewhere in the packet that I submitted to you shows you just exactly what the technical specifications of the landfill are. And for the base of any landfill in the state of Maine, you have 2 different, you have 9 layers, but you have 2 plastic layers. And there's layers of clay, there's layer of drainage, there's layers where you collect leachate. All in all, those 9 layers add up to about 4 feet in depth. We've operated the landfill since 1982. Last year, we put about 140,000 cubic yards of material in there. But in the end, it will compact as you start to fill it up and drive over it. That will probably, I think we estimate somewhere around 67,000 cubic yards. So there's a 50% reduction in the volume. Every year, someone asks me how long will the landfill last, and at its present fill rate and the way we're set up, right now we're expecting 21 years to my last calculation. We expect to close out, do a partial closeout of some of the landfill cells in probably 2 years. In 7 years, we'll start the construction of the last remaining cell in the landfill. We are looking right next to the landfill about potential expansion, but that takes a long time, and we are looking into it. We'll make sure it takes 7 or 8 years to get the groundwater monitoring pre-check done and all the other engineering work. It takes a long time to expand a landfill. So with that, I do have a little show and tell. I did this the last couple of years, but just a lot of times people ask, well, just what is one of these plastic layers go, the geocomposite? And this is actually the second layer, but it's the primary layer underneath the landfill. And you can see the plastic's real thick. On top of that, it has a protective mat. And underneath that, it has a mat that has bentonite clay. And we have another layer down there, but it's only 2-ply thick. It's this thing, just these two. I'll pass it around for people to take a look at. Out of the landfill, the cost is heavy on the engineering, but just the geocomposite on cell 13 was $1.3 million. And the only thing of note, we used a local construction firm, Ranger, and on our landfill this last time, had very, very good luck with them. They were on time, they were fast, efficient, we had no cost overruns, did a perfect job. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions. I know with the submittal, we submitted a copy of our annual report to the DEP and our water quality report that gives the results of the groundwater monitoring wells and our leachate monitoring program.
Anybody that's interested.
If somebody is interested, are those available somehow?
Yes, they're at the town office.
That's what I thought.
Yep. And certainly they can call me too, if anyone has any questions.
These items are submitted every time that they come in for a license renewal, and we maintain them and keep copies of them.
Yep.
Electronically as well.
Yes, electronically as well.
Digital materials.
Thank you. Questions, concerns from the council?
I just want to say thank you. I appreciate your thoroughness in the packet that we got this year, as usual, and I wish you well on your future endeavors with the rest of the cells, so.
Yep, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would agree with that. I guess the one thing that'll come up, sometimes people ask about what the testing process is. Maybe you could, when you're monitoring wells, who is doing that testing and where does that, so if they want more information that way.
We hire a third party to do the testing for us. We don't do the testing, and a third party lab as well. So it's a company called CV and Mahar Engineers. I actually used to work for them at some point in time in my past. But they have a whole team of people that go to all the landfills in the state, and they actually collect the samples, put them in coolers, and transport them directly right to the lab to be tested, and handle the quality assurance, quality control, chain of custody, the whole 9 yards. And that can be found, anything that we submit to the state is public, but they can also contact us. I mean, we have to submit it, it's public, so.
Thank you for the description. That's nice to hear the transparency and the degrees of detail that you go through.
Yep.
They just take samples above ground, or do they bore and take samples?
Yeah, so we actually have 3 types of wells. So we go real deep, because you want to get into, around here, we're near the river, but as you probably know, you eventually hit bedrock. So you want to get into that. And then on top of that, you have marine clay, and then there's kind of what they call brown clay. And so we have some up shallow and some down medium to try to cover all the bases all the way around.
Thank you. Any other questions, concerns? Appreciate the presentation and appreciate you being here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
All sets?
Anybody from the public have questions?
Yeah.
Is it
I was going to ask you,
public
yeah.
hearing?
I don't know if you see any questions coming up, if anybody has anything.
And still nothing on Zoom, so.
Yeah, so you're all good? All right, now I'll close the, how's that? Much better. So our third order of business, there are public comments, limited 3 minutes. Members of the public may speak to the council or request opportunity to speak on a specific item that is on the agenda, or may email comments for council to info@fairfield-me.gov by 4 p.m. the day of the meeting. Submitted content may be read aloud at this time. Any submitted content? None. Anybody in the audience that wishes to speak or wishes to reserve the right to speak later? Seeing none. We shall move on to the fourth order of business. Reports from staff and committees. The town manager report.
All right, so on July 16th, I attended the PFAS committee meeting. The 17th, I attended a KRDA marketing meeting and also the 31 Lawrence Ave committee meeting. On July 24th, which was this morning, I attended the Central Maine Growth Council's Board of Directors meeting. Major topic of discussion today was around housing. And it's great to have folks that were from the banking world, the educational world, and private sector all in the room discussing the severe lack of new homes for workforce housing in the area, and what can we do to get developers to come to the region and actually invest and construct new homes. The Town Farm project was a big part of the discussion. Many of those board members were around when the council had commissioned that report on the Town Farm. So we're hoping to see a bunch more activity on that in the area and promoting the need and potentially reaching out to developers. It was interesting to find out that you cannot buy a condo right now in the state of Maine, or at least definitely not in this region. There are none to be found. And oftentimes what happens is when they bring in professors or folks in the private sector, they want to live in a condo type environment until they figure out which neighborhood they want to live in the region, and there is no housing of that format anywhere. So it's definitely a little bit of an interesting problem. But that was a good discussion today. And then also today, Yesterday, I called Commissioner Loisen's office again for the second time to follow up on your letter. I also reached out today to another member of the Department of DEP, and then this afternoon, you did receive your feedback from Commissioner Loisen's office for the letter that the council sent back in May on the 22nd. That was all emailed directly to you, except for Adam. I believe he was a counselor that they were not aware of at that time, so I have forwarded that to Counselor Lorette's email, and then we brought hard copies for you this evening. And then the question I have is whether or not it's something you want to schedule for your next meeting or whatnot, but under other council business, you should probably discuss how you want to handle that.
Yes.
And a copy of it was also forwarded to the PFAS committee, because they too were waiting on the results of that. So, and that's it for me.
Very good. Thank you, Michelle. Any questions for Michelle? All right. So move to committee reports.
The Economic and Community Development Committee will be meeting August 6th at 3:30 in this room.
Very good. As you heard actually from the manager, that we had the PFAS meeting on July 16th. The biggest one on that one, we were still waiting the results of the letter, so we now have those this afternoon. So we'll have to assess those. That really helps us to decide how to move forward. The biggest part of our meeting was spent on looking back through our goals and our mission and kind of looking at what would they look like when if we reach those goals. So what would that look like? How we want to move forward? I think one of the biggest things we're looking at, and Maxwell Kenny is in the audience, so if he can correct me if he wishes to. But I think our biggest thing is that we'd really like to have that central clearinghouse of information for residents of Fairfield and for new residents of Fairfield. And then looking forward, what like we talked about, making sure that we have a sustainable clean source of water, and that is going to be taken care of by the state in the long range plan. So those are a lot of different options, but that's one of our biggest goals. So we're trying to get those set in motion and see what those look like. Other ones would be doing with what would be done with the land. So we're still looking at talking to the state about those. We have a meeting coming up with the CDC in August, so that's our next meeting. So we'll have more information at that point. But I think this letter was probably a linchpin in our move forward to get to where we have answers. John, you're on the committee as well. Thoughts? Does that kind of give a good synopsis of where that meeting went?
Yes, very good.
Mr. Kinney, what do you think? You're good. Okay. Thanks so much. The other one will be discussed in the other business for us. That was the 31 Lawrence Avenue house. So we had a good discussion on that one, and we will move forward with that. But I just want to add the quick moment. And I probably can do it later too, but I really want to thank the members of that committee. So Paul Nichols, Carrie-Ann Bagnulo, who else? We had Kerry Heichel was there, Dan Kissinger. So a really good committee that worked really hard, and I think and obviously Alyssa Patterson, but our librarian. So a really good committee, and I think very thoughtful of giving options to this council tonight. So I really want to thank them publicly for their hard work, and we'll present a little bit later. I think Peter, we may have something kind of for you, or not. We have some of the test boards and stuff. I'm not sure if you're involved on that end or want to say anything.
I'm just waiting for the results. We're going to have that in another discussion. I did read it, and so.
Very good. So at that point, we'll move to the fifth order of business, the consent agenda. These items are considered routine or standard business, and therefore will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a council member so requests prior to the consideration of this portion of the agenda, which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered next on the agenda. Item 24-114, order that the Fairfield Town Council hereby waives the reading of and accept the minutes for meeting number 2024-13 held on July 10th, 2024. Item 24-115, order the Town Council hereby approves Treasurer's Warrant number 130, General Fund 6/30/2024 in the amount of $13,169.65. not limited to, but including MSAD 49 fuel, Pine Tree Waste, and warrant number 57, General Fund 630-2025, in the amount of $163,717.90, not limited to, but including First Park, KWD, MMA, and the Somerset Humane Society.
So moved.
One of you guys want to do a second? That was
I'll do a second.
that was a photo finish. All right. So, motion is second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 5-0. Thank you. Sixth order of business, to take action on the following items of business as read by the council chair. Item 24-116, or the town council hereby approves an annual waste disposal permit for Sappi North America, Inc. landfill facility located on company-owned land off of Route 201 in the town of Fairfield.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? I mean, I know it's in some areas, it's a hot button item and a big discussion, but you look at the work and the permitting process that is done in this, and I feel comfortable with that, and I fully support that. You have to go with what the regulations are and make sure they follow those rules, and they follow those rules to the T. And so I don't have any other issues along that line.
Right.
Any other discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? 5-0, thank you. Item 24-117, order the town council hereby considers and approves appropriating monies from the Crawford Trust Fund to support the Lawrence High School Band and Orchestra programs for the school year 2024-2025 in the amount of $69,000.
So moved.
Second.
So discussion, speak,
Mr. Bowers is here. Dan Bowers.
yeah, I was gonna. So I actually had a meeting with Dan Bowers the other night. So if you, Dan, would you mind speaking to that?
Sure. Good evening. My name's Dan Bowers of Prince Walter High School. Thank you for inviting me, Michelle. This is my 5th year here. We're going on 6, so this is the first time coming down here and helping with this. But the Crawford funds, the budget put forward is a good chunk of change, I realize that, and I know that, we left some on the table. I don't anticipate fully spending all of this, and what we don't spend, according to the bylaws, go back in towards instrument purchase or whatnot, but as we go through this, we will, and I will submit with you for review at the end of the year what exactly was purchased for specific things. But, I don't have which instrument they're looking at purchasing, but you've essentially got 3 programs we're funding, the symphonic band, the band, then you've got the jazz band and the marching band, and the marching band is a good chunk out of it. We're sending 7 kids to UMaine for a camp, and usually we also send, spacing on the name, but the color guard directors, the students who direct the marching band, last year we sent a couple for specific instruction there, and they have earnest money they need to put up, $100 out of the $670 that the music camp costs. So, and naturally, if there's somebody that can't afford that, then we end up taking care of that as well. But I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have pertaining to what's presented before you for the budget.
When was the last time with all this maintenance and new equipment was bought?
When was the last time
Yeah.
new equipment?
Yeah, new equipment and uniforms and things like that.
The uniforms hadn't been purchased in a while. It's
Yeah.
before I got here. Equipment, pieces of equipment get purchased every year. A lot of it is maintenance of equipment that we spend money on, but there was a new, I don't know if it was a saxophone, a sousaphone, some type of phone, not the communicating kind that was purchased last year. Yeah, and got damaged on the field, so that went out for repairs and stuff. So it's just, it's that kind of nebulous.
Okay, it is.
Yeah.
But
And I
I can
think-
get you, I could have Lauren Fields, our band instructor.
No, I
pull this
understand,
out.
I understand about this, because I used to be familiar with the band myself in-
Oh, okay.
in my years, and I'm just glad to see the upkeep and new uniforms and
Yeah.
helping the students actually go in the camp.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. This type of fund is excellent.
And I think it's nice to see the fact that we actually have money this year.
Yes.
So the fund performed nicely. Last year, there was very little distributed, had to use rollover money
Right.
previously. So this case, we are.
And I think that's why maybe too, it's up
Yeah,
a bit
and-
more than traditionally.
Right.
It's been around 30 or so.
Right, so I think this is a larger distribution this year, but I think
Yeah.
we're following all the guidelines of the fund, so we're not raiding the fund. So
Right.
I think you're doing a good job, and as a group, that we're making sure we're protecting the fund for future use.
Right.
But that we're taking those funds now and putting them to the purposes they're supposed to be used, and making up for last year's loss.
Yeah,
But still having funds that can be used for rollover, depending on what happens next year.
Right.
So I think it's very well managed, and so I appreciate you doing that.
I want to thank you
Thanks.
and Mr. Field, Lauren, and
Yep.
other instructors on the band too. Trying to piece things together all these years and finally getting the money you really need to replace this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I appreciate the effort with the budget request here.
good.
Yep.
Thank you.
So, any more discussion?
The only discussion I have is just for clarification for those who aren't aware, because I wasn't aware of this before I joined the council. We've thrown around the words designation, distribution, funds. Chairman, would you mind clarifying where this money comes from? Is it taxpayer dollars?
No.
How those funds work? I'm aware, but I would think it'd help the general public.
Nothing to
So
do with taxpayer
it comes from a
dollars.
trust fund, the Crawford Fund. And so, and I should remember from my history of when it was established, but it's been, so Michelle's smiling, because she's, but it is.
Been a couple of years.
It's old, it's old. So even trying to find some of the original letters establishing were difficult on that end. But so that's where it's that, and we have, as with a trust fund, it has set guidelines on how much can be taken and what the principal can be, how much of the principal can be used. It really pretty much is looking at just earnings, which is why some years, unfortunately, we don't have the earnings for the band because we can't raid, the principal. Under normal circumstances. So it is fortunately all
It's
this
been good.
great funding that actually goes to the school and the band process and the band performances or groups, but and costs nothing for tax dollars. So it's good stuff. So,
Perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So anything you
So
want to say,
moved.
Michelle?
I just have one thing, and if you're not aware, Mr. Bowers, several years ago, the council was invited to actually see the marching band perform. I think they had like a pre-competition practice or something like that at the field. If that comes up again, could you have somebody let me know and we'd let the council know, because it was a great event at that time and it's something they're definitely interested in.
We'll host a home meeting. We're the most northern band that has a marching band.
Yep.
Sorry.
That's okay.
We'll be hosting a home meet in September. I'll get you the right date.
That would be great.
But we're the northernmost band that has a marching band. The rest are south.
Yep.
We'll have, the last time we had one, Biddeford, Westbrook, I don't know if it was Kennebunk, but it's southern schools and it's large schools. So we're the northernmost and probably the smallest. So it's quite a thing to watch.
It is.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'll definitely get you the invite.
Thank you very much. Any more discussion? Nope. All those in favor? Thank you, 5-0. Item 24-118, order the town council hereby signs a warrant for special town meeting municipal election to be held on November 5th, 2024.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Thank you.
5-0. Item 24-119, where the town council hereby adopts Updates to the Town Council Administrative Policy, Section 501, Parks, Waterfront, and Green Space Use, and corresponding use permits.
So moved.
Second.
So motion is second. Discussion. We talked about this at the last meeting,
Right.
kind of did our
Yes, we
workshop
did.
on it.
Yep.
Now, may I?
Yes.
I really appreciate the work that was put into this by the town manager, and I think it's very inclusive now, and of all, including the form, and I know that the town clerk had a part in that as well, so thank you. And it's long overdue, so, looks good.
Yep. It put everything into it that we requested and
And I think it
set it all
goes,
up good. Yep.
speaks to all those public areas. You can still use them, but again, trying to avoid those situations where somebody's using the gazebo at the same time. And so I think this really sets it up and gives a good framework for people to use the park if they need to reserve
Right.
and parks. And
Yep,
it's nice to do this fully
absolutely.
inclusive now with Mill Island Monument, Community Center, Park, and the waterfront boat landing. So, well done. Any other discussion along those lines?
Nope.
Very good. All those in favor? All right, thank you.
I just thought of something. The date of this will be put on in here, right, underneath? Okay. All right.
One of the things we've been trying to do going forward is pretty much anything that has been changed, adopted, especially in the administrative policy, is to make sure that those amendments are actually tracked within the document so that we know that we're always dealing with the most current version as
Thank
council
you.
has worked on stuff.
Yep. Absolutely.
Item 24-120, order the town council hereby updates to the town council administrative policy fee schedule, parks, waterfront, and green space use, electricity, $25 per 3-hour increment usage.
So second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? So that is for the, if you need electrical use. So I think if
Yep.
everybody's unsure of what I just said, if you're at home or you're in the audience, like, oh, I have to pay $25 to use the gazebo. No, not unless you're using electricity. So so those are the things that we're talking about. So if you need to have electricity, Public Works needs to come and open that up and take care of that. We have the time frame on that. So that's where that $25 is being assessed.
Correct.
All those in favor? Thank you, 5-0. And item 24-121, order the town council hereby votes and authorizes the town manager to cast the MMA ballot for officers and executive committee members.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Second.
I beat you.
Easy as a verbal, hand raise.
Sonia, I think, is here.
Yeah, so we have more discussion.
Yes.
I don't even have a copy of, do I? There we
Yeah.
go.
Michelle.
Yes. So this is the ballot for MMA's executive committee. Just trying to see what the actual, I don't have a copy of the actual ballot.
Because we don't normally copy ballots.
Right.
That's the reason.
So there are currently, yes. So it would be a one-year term for the vice president, which is Justin Poirier, who happens to be the Monmouth town manager. And he's the only person running for that seat. And then there are 3 seats open for 3-year terms on the executive committee. They are David Sear, Frenchfield town manager, Michelle, I'm going to butcher it, Verulo Cole, who is a select person in Bethel, and then Matthew Garside, who is the town manager in Poland. So none of the seats are contested at this point, unless y'all have an idea for a write-in. I don't even see that write-ins are an option.
So you have your time on the MMA and work more closely. Any thoughts, any guidance for us?
All good individuals, like all committees everywhere and boards. Maine Municipal Association this year had a hard time finding municipal officials that were interested in, not necessarily just interested, but had time to serve in this executive board function. They re-advertised. If you all get emails from MMA, you know that they push that quite often. There was a plea for folks to actually run for this position. So the fact that they were able to find folks to fill all 4 of their vacant seats is great for them. And I'm familiar with most of the names on the list. All great people, so.
So the executive committee has 3 seats open?
Those are the seats that are open that need to be elected. So typically what we do, so that it's not the town council having all to sign off on it, that kind of stuff, you just vote to allow me to vote those seats, and we sign the paperwork, send it in with the fact that you've approved that.
So we had a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
No?
All those in favor? Thank you very much, 5-0. So that will move on to the 7th order of business, so our council workshop. So at this point, the first one is to discuss the sound permit reports from the Fairfield Police Department and the AMP Lab doing business as exclusive audio. So,
Hello, I'm Ethan from Exclusive Audio.
yes, thank you.
We hosted our sound competition this past Saturday at our shop. I really appreciate being given that permit the last time I was here so we could try that out again. So we tried to make the event, publicly known so people could know it was coming. And then the main thing that we did, like the main plan to try to ameliorate some of the noise from people that obviously didn't want to hear it, was reposition the vehicles, because we have a fairly large property there, so we can reposition a bit. And so what we did was move all of the vehicles from the field that we had them in, which was kind of behind our building, more towards the people that were being affected by the sound, and we moved them to the opposite side of our property into our parking lot. We faced them all towards the river, and just kept everyone over there. And especially on the property, like I expected it to be helpful, but it was on the property, it was like very dramatic difference. Just being like, if you went and stood over on the field where we used to have them all, it was like actually quite surprisingly quiet. Like I expected not quite that much of a dramatic result. So I think that worked pretty good. I didn't get any messages from anyone. I didn't get any calls. The police didn't show up. So I think that was a success. I guess we'll have to see what the chief has to say. But on our end, all went well. We had a great turnout. We had a really good time. We made announcements beforehand, like that we were going to be really strict about times. No playing at all before 11, no playing at all after 4. Everyone that came was super respectful. I didn't hear a single system before 11 or after 4. So on our end, I thought it was a success.
So that sounds really good. Questions from the council, or?
I'm glad that it was a success. And I think it was Mrs. Jones, was it Mrs. Jones? Miss Jones, Christine Jones. I hope she was okay with everything, because we asked if she could settle on this compromise.
Right.
And
I didn't hear from her.
You didn't hear from her, so that was my concern, was
Right.
were there any complaints? And so I think it was a success as well.
I'm hoping so.
So thank you, and I want to thank you too for coming back.
Yeah.
And
Yes,
telling us
definitely.
how it went.
Yeah,
So
I
it's nice to
appreciate
have
it.
some closure.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Chief, any more questions for Ethan?
No.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chief Gould?
Like you said, there was a dramatic decrease in noise from Ohio Hill Road anyway. There was some wind, and I did speak to the officer that was on duty. We both felt the wind was helping to suppress some of the sound. It was not as loud as I expected it to be on the little driveway up there. I forgot the name of it, Forest Lane or Faith's Way. Thank you. It wasn't as loud as I thought it would be. There was somebody out there feeding their horses. It was annoying, but they said it wasn't bothering their animals. We did get one complaint. The complainant was quite upset, but when we told her it would end at 4 o'clock, she said, as long as it's not a minute after 4 o'clock, I'm okay. And it obviously did not go a minute after 4 o'clock because she said she would call if it did. Those were the only complaints that we had. My only issue is I think we need to look at changing the sound permit. I think the memo that I wrote explains why. A sound permit only allows the sound to be, so there's speakers on their vehicles. If the sound isn't above the human voice at 75 feet, then they don't need a permit. They only need a permit for noise that's going to be above average at the 75-foot mark, and it only covers them out to 100 yards. And I can tell you right now, that was way more than 100 yards. So I think the permitting process restricts me to denying them if we continue with that section in the noise ordinance. So where the beginning of the noise ordinance says that the chief has, the permitting process, the chief has to take into consideration the surroundings and the areas before I issue the permit, I think that would cover us, and I would be able to use that to approve and deny a permit. And that would probably allow them to just continue with these permitting, the permitting process, and I would be at that point able to issue them the permits without having to come to you every month or every year when they do have that. That's the only comment I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So yes, I guess that would make something we should have as a agenda item in the future.
So we can work on that amendment and we'll get that for you.
Yeah, that'd be great. And I guess I just want to echo Councillor Thibodeau's comments, and I really appreciate the process. It was one that was contentious at the beginning, but it was actually where you saw a compromise and willingness to compromise, which in this day and age isn't always the case. So it was nice to see that it was compromise and it worked out for all parties. So that's always nice to see. So I appreciate, hopefully it was a very successful gathering for you. Good. So I'm glad it worked well. So nice. Thank you very much. Number 2 is to discuss Dirigo and Summit Geoengineering for the fire department building assessments and monitoring reports. So any comments or thoughts you would have?
So you received a copy of the Summit Geoengineering Services report. All the items that were part of the RFP were not completed. We have not done the test borings. In fact, with discussion with folks, we're not necessarily sure whether or not the test borings are necessary. But we wanted to at least get you this portion of the report so you could see what was going on. And then that way you could make the determination as to whether or not we want to actually do those test borings. I'll try to bring up here, folks can see. As you can see, it appears that the side of the building that's basically facing the Gerald is what is moving. And it makes sense that it's moving when you start to think about what it's actually constructed out of. Based upon my reading of the document is that basically the apparatus bay is 9 inches of concrete, reinforced concrete, whereas opposed to the back of the building is 5 inches that is not reinforced concrete. We're not really sure what the void is underneath. And when thinking about doing the test boring, might also not even tell us what the void is from underneath. So that was the more expensive portion of the project, and we just stopped there and thought we'd have council have the discussion. And Travis, Chief Leary is here this evening as well.
Yes.
If you have any questions.
Yeah, Chief Leary, if you have ability to speak, that'd be great. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So yeah, as Manager Flewelling had said, we had talked about the test borings and just don't think we're going to get any more information other than what we already got with the floor x-rays themselves. We can see the void space. The only thing the boring is going to do is tell you what material is underneath there. So we had come to the conclusion that possibly saving some funds for a later date, you know, for a different project.
Is the floor drain working properly
Yep, the floor in the apparatus bay,
in
yep.
the apparatus bay, so
Yeah.
there's no leakage for erosion?
Well, we don't know that, yeah. We don't know if it's, as far as we know, it's working okay. We have to pump it every year due to sediment, but it does work. But whether it's staying in that piping system, I don't know that answer, but.
Because I was thinking, if a
They
drain
didn't-
breaks in the road, then there's going to be erosion.
Sure.
Could this be something that's causing that
They did
corner?
mention that, when they were there, they mentioned erosion, from drainage or just groundwater itself, settling. So I don't know if they could really tell us an official answer without seeing really what's underneath there, so.
And how would they go about and do that, Travis?
They said that they would just drill test holes. They can drill holes into the slab. Typically is what they do is they do the perimeter outside of the building in several different spots. And then they can drill the slab if they wanted us to. But that's how they.
And are these the borings that we're talking about? Or is this something different?
No, so that's what we didn't have done,
Yeah.
where they'll do it. So remember, that's what they did when we had the investigation done to the police department, because we had to find out what was underneath that, because we didn't pick up on the void and stuff like we did with this one. And that's where we found that it was wood down underneath.
Right.
In the long run, it didn't really make much of a difference once we found out what was underneath there.
Right.
It didn't change the outcome of the investigation.
So my line, and I'm not a very mechanical person, so I'm thinking if that drain is broken at some point and there's water seeping in there, that's going to cause ground erosion. Therefore, that would weaken that corner of the building. To me, I wish we could, can't we take that snake that
So those drains are
sewer
inspected.
has?
Those are actually inspected. Like, if it was broken, we would know that.
So they take a camera and they can go down like they do
We
the
have to
sewer
actually have them
lines?
professionally inspected, so yes.
So there's no broken drains or anything?
Not that anybody is aware of, no.
Oh, well,
Nothing.
that ruins that.
And I don't think it would drain as properly if there was either, so.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, but I believe the drain does run out towards Lawrence Avenue. And this is more towards that back corner,
Right.
towards the Gerald. So.
Yeah. Well, I think that that we haven't made any gains in this situation at all based on this report, and that's very disappointing for me. So I just,
Okay, I'm just concerned, I got the back page of the floor plan. I know toward the Gerald and Main Street is the worst part. I'm looking at this right now, is the percent, the inches of the slope. Then it goes in, then it stops in the middle. Middle is sort of balanced, then it
Yeah.
starts again, where you go into the slab, going to the town office.
Yeah.
So the middle is good, it's sloping
It's
down this
on
way.
the edges, yeah, and that's what they said.
That is a concern.
Yeah, for sure.
I didn't realize we had the exterior wall cracking.
Yeah, we did. I didn't either, to be honest with you. We found that when Dirigo was there
They were
doing the
here.
measurements and stuff, so. It does kind of blend in because of the bricks and the mortar. but-
I'm just,
It's not necessarily at eye level.
Yeah.
in their recommendations, they want to continue with survey monitoring to evaluate the rate of movement, and install monitoring points for the existing foundation. And again, they're recommending to do the test borings. It's not going to repair itself at this point.
what's the cost for each? Because I know each one has a cost.
Right, for the borings. I'm not sure how much the total would be for the borings.
I'm just concerned what's underneath there might be causing the shift
Right, yeah.
between the frost and anything else going on.
To me, the building itself is worth remediation. It's a solid building outside of the cracks and the sloping. You know, we could use it for something else if it's not going to be a fire station in the future. But it still would need to be repaired.
Right, yeah.
And I don't think we should just throw the baby out with the bathwater in this instance.
Well, obviously,
That's a waste of money.
well, and the fact is, we can't.
No.
So,
No.
there is no nice new shiny building that we can roll trucks into tomorrow
Right.
and walk away. So I think this needs to be our, mission of how do we compromise and make it safe for our, which is the primary goal, make it safe for our fire department and still have it function, and while we work toward a new building or a better solution. So, thoughts on that? Do we look at, I think we can make this a part of our, actually can be more of a full item, because we want to actually look at the costs associated with borings, costs associated with the continued evaluations.
And then monitoring, because I know it's a modern device they actually put in down an existing foundation. It's almost like a camera, and they monitor the movement of each season. So,
And what will that in the long run tell us? That, yeah, the building is sinking in that corner. I mean,
Right.
But what is that, what is that rate of sink? Can we maintain, unfortunately, Chief Gould, can we maintain it like the police departments for a short period of time with sinking and changes that you constantly deal with? Can we deal with that? Or is it relatively stable, that's just shifting millimeters a year, while we work toward a new solution? So I think that's where it helps us to understand what that rate of change is and how long, obviously it's an urgent need, but how urgent? Like, is it emergent need, or is it urgent, meaning this decade?
this decade.
Right. So, but is it 2 years? You know what I'm saying?
I think the elephant in the room, though, is it time to get moving on a public safety building overall, with the police station the way it is?
So that's
But
what-
is this the straw that breaks the camel's back right here, our catalyst?
I think why we had a building committee and why we talked about it initially, and I thought that was the reason why we wanted to bring this back up, because that was something that was being worked on before COVID. Then it was kind of forgotten because there are a lot of other things, but then we started to work toward it again. I think that's obviously is the big need, that we need to really seriously look at that and put, actually make hard decisions. So I would agree. If we're concerned about the long-term safety of our employees, the performance the performance of those employees because of the environment they're in, the protection of the town, and the investment in our assets. Those buildings are assets, and we have to look at those.
and also too, is this stopping new employment?
Sure.
That's
We
true.
gotta determine that too.
And we also know that if we do go down that path of looking at alternatives to Delta, we don't have the facility right now to support that. So that has to be an option.
Yep.
Is the building affecting the workforce in the condition that it's in?
That's a tough decision, or tough to say, because obviously, I guess if I was starting out in the career, would I be attracted more to a new shiny building with new shiny things? Yeah, I probably would be. So I would say that could play a potential role in hiring and retaining people, for sure. Because obviously people like to work with good equipment and new stuff.
I know, my question to you, Travis, at the current place you have, I know the ladder truck.
Yep.
I know you have your amphibious boat on one side and something on the back. How long does that take that ladder truck out to get the other stuff out?
It takes a few minutes. There's definitely a delay. Yeah. And particularly with the boat, if somebody is drowning in the river and we have a 5-minute delay because we have to move the ladder truck and we have to, that could potentially be life-threatening for sure. And I just on another note too, I've been doing this process in Clinton for a new station, and we're coming up on year number 5 for our process. So it's not a short-term process.
No, it's not.
Right.
And that's why if we're going to do something, and we know it's inevitable, we should be starting the wheels going now and not keep putting it off. Because that building is, like you said, it's an asset, so it's still going to need to be remediated. But if we're just prolonging the inevitable, I know we've got 2 bonds that are going to be done within this year or the beginning of next year. So one's done this year, and then I think another one next year, correct? So it might be time to,
Let
I'm
me tell
sorry.
you off the top of my head.
But I think maybe it's time for us to start.
Start just 1 second, and I'll have it for
That
you.
report, and then do additional study, because you got that bond coming up each year. Might be-
Well, it wouldn't be a study then. I think it would be the actual, the outlay of cost analysis, site analysis. There's more to it because it's a commitment from the townspeople, and it would be a bond that we would have to get for something like this. So,
Single building, multiple buildings, all those things.
yeah, we need to see.
So we just had 2 bonds that expired. Now, those are sewer bonds, so remember, that's only 50% taxation and 50% sewer fees. We do have another bond, which technically debt service, that is going to expire April of 2025, but that's the fire pumper truck payment that we have, which is paid for through the fire station's capital reserve account. The biggest bond you have next that's coming up to expire is the infrastructure bond, which is that $900,000 bond we had to fix all of the roads and some other various different department things. That doesn't expire until 2027.
So 3 years down the road, 5 years already working on one in Clinton. So if we start now with the anticipation that, I don't think we're bond-free at that point, right, in 27?
No. You would still have, there's still at least 2 sewer bonds left.
2 more sewer bonds?
30 and
But at
32.
least we'd be getting rid of a biggie by the time that's done. It
So
takes a while.
We've already got, we got rid of 1 in 22, and then we just got rid of 2 in April of this year. So we've had 3 in the last 2 years that have expired, so.
So what is the process to go through, Michelle, for something like this?
So it could be most anything, but what you might want to consider doing is actually putting out a request for proposal for a engineering firm that would help you with potentially a design build type product, which, or just the design. And then you would go out to bid for construction, but mostly it would be the design. It would probably take you at least a year for the design process, because something this big, you would want to know that you had community involvement as well as council involvement and department involvement. We would want to have an eye towards the future and needs, because you don't want to build just what's going to suit you today, but what's going to suit you 50 to 75 years from now. And what would all that look like? But you would need an organization to help you facilitate that.
We'd also need to know where this place would be to house a new building, which we don't have.
Which is always a possibility. And I mean, we have options. You have municipally owned land of where you could put it and what would be the best location and
Yeah.
and those sorts of things. And then what does it look like, right? So the building committee reported back that the police department needed to be looked at and addressed as soon as possible. That was their top priority. The fire station was right behind that. We've had conversations about combining all of our municipal facilities in one location, if that was possible. So there's a whole host of things you could do, but it takes a while just to work through that process before you even start the design of what it would look like.
So I think we need to start that process then. Let's get this elephant moving. So, but it's not going to go away, this situation at the fire station. So let's just be, to me, that's being proactive rather than reactive.
So to me, it looks like there's a 2-part equation here, which is one, what do we do right now with the present building? So do we follow some of these recommendations? Do we at least look at some of the monitoring so we can understand how fast the rate of change is and how emergent the situation is, and whether that may affect our building plans, because we may have to really speed up the process. So that's something we should address tonight. And I think going forward, I think we need to start looking at starting the process. And I think, so whether that's one of our I think very soon future meetings to really focus on what, getting that process, getting that structure together to start the building process.
So I guess, what about the test borings? Should we have those done anyways?
So I think in my head, what I would think, I'd love to, before we just do those, I'd love to hear costs on some of the monitoring and test boring. And so if we could look at those and make an educated decision on that, that'd be great.
Because it said in the report too, they found metal in the scanning. They said it could be an old oil tank out there with some kind of metal, so.
Not the oil tank, it's the base of the burner.
Boiler.
The boiler that was actually in
Okay.
there. It's not an oil tank.
All right.
So it's not like an oil tank is creating a void. It was a piece of the old boiler and they
Yeah.
filled on top of it. So the borings are actually included in the original bid that you approved. They're an additional $5,000. And then, of course, there would be the reporting on those. As of right now, I believe for Summit Geotechnical, we've only paid, I think we received the bill, it was $11,000. And we have, I think, a couple of thousand in Jadirigo Engineering. We can find out what their continuous monitoring is. It's not very much because they monitor the police department for us as well. It's a minimal cost where they come down and they shoot grades and that sort of stuff. What I would like to do is to know that if this is where you stop, I really just want to make sure that there isn't anything that the engineers consider to be a hazard to the safety and well-being, immediate safety and well-being of our employees as well as our assets. So our employees are our greatest asset in the department, but if you think about what it costs for a fire truck nowadays and all the other equipment that's in there, you have an obligation to protect all of that. So I want to make sure that that's safe in what they would recommend, even if you just spend the next year monitoring that facility, and any recommendations that they would have for an immediate type fix. I think the concern with doing an immediate fix is it could very well be expensive and not actually fix it if you're not really certain what's happening, which is why a little bit of waiting might be better than not, as long as we're not putting anyone or anything in any danger.
That's my feeling. I think that you said it better than I did, so I appreciate that. And that's really why I think the monitoring would be a wise idea at the moment, so we can again assess the urgency of the situation and the safety of the situation.
I just don't want to do a test boring and hit something and something goes wrong. There's actually
In the
something-
test boring?
Yeah, they bore down there.
Yeah.
There actually something might be down there that maybe.
Doesn't look like we'll be hitting any environmental issues. So.
Yeah.
Doesn't appear to be any environmentals, and all of the utilities have been flagged and all of that stuff. I mean, you can walk around the building right now and you can see where they've actually looked. They've already mapped out where they were going to do the borings if they were going to do them, at least on the exterior of the building. And then the other thing that we can do for you is next meeting, hopefully come up with a couple of options for you to start the plan of where direction to go about starting the process for a public safety building, and at least give you an idea of where to get started.
So I think, to me, that's where I'd like to go. But I'd like to let the rest of the council speak on that. I think moving forward, so we have just those final costs of monitoring. I know we have the test bores, and then so we can make a final decision next time. Would be wise, a totally educated decision, and then again start that process of what the whole process for the building would be. And I think that's a good spot to start, and I think we could start that at the next meeting. That seems reasonable to you?
Sure.
Yep. Awesome. I think it's responsible and moving forward, so that's good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Travis.
So that brings us to the next one, with the 31 Lawrence Ave committee recommendations.
Okay.
So this one is, again, I would want to, being on the committee, so again, I'd like to thank Alyssa Patterson, Carrie Heichel, Paul Nichols, Carol Ann Mulo, Dan Kissinger, and then Manager Flewelling for a lot of hard work. And I think we came together as a group that had disparate opinions on what should be done. And I think we still have differing opinions, but we all worked very hard to do what we thought was best for the library and for the town in the long run. So I don't know if you want me to put together, I can read the recommendation, kind of a quick synopsis of our committee meetings, and then come down to our final recommendations for the council, if that would be helpful. And that may be so people at home can understand where we went. If you would like me to do that.
The public might want to know what the recommendations are.
Yeah. So I'll just start. I'll just hammer through this. February 28th, the town council established the 31 Lawrence Avenue Committee. The committee's mission is to present the council with options for the consideration in accordance with the 2008 annual town meeting, Article 32, to include corresponding costs and pros and cons of each option, present and future, and how each is of specific benefit to the Lawrence Public Library. So it's an important part to remember, the benefit of the Lawrence Public Library. Members of the committee were appointed on March 13th, 2024, and the first meeting was held on April 2nd, 2024. April 2nd, committee members were provided with the history of the municipality's purchase of 31 Lawrence Ave and various details leading up to the current day. April 24th meeting, the committee members have viewed photos taken by the Public Works Director on April 23rd of the interior of 31 Lawrence Avenue. Committee members requested that a comparable market analysis be completed so that the current estimated value of the building could be ascertained. The June 24th meeting, Jill Heward of Surratt Real Estate submitted the CMA on June 23rd, 2024. The building has an estimated value of $248,102. This value does not take into consideration the need for asbestos abatement, lead paint mitigation, and repair needs. July 17th meeting, the committee members discussed with the library director, Alyssa Patterson, the library's needs and wants for expansion, ADA accessibility for the top floor, current and potential programming, etc. The use of 31 Lawrence Avenue as an annex to the library was discussed and was not found to be favorable. The 31 Lawrence Avenue Committee submits in no particular order to the Fairfield Town Council 3 potential options for the property. Option number 1, sell it. The building and the remaining .029 acres could be listed with a realtor. Minimum price and a sell-by deadline should be put in place. The building should be sold as is, and the town should not pay for any of the inspection or closing costs. The committee is aware that this will ultimately affect the selling price. All funds from the sale would be deposited in the library's reserve account as per the May 12, 2008 annual town meeting warrant article. Option number 2, keep it. Keep and preserve the building. The town retains ownership of the building and preserves, repairs, refurbishes it. The committee makes no recommendation as for the use or where the funds would be obtained for this option, but does recommend the town council have a purpose for the building before any funds are spent on repairs. Option number 3, demo it. Demolish the building and maintain the land for the library use. A worst-case cost estimate for the demolition, which includes the cost of asbestos abatement and lead paint remediation, has been received by the committee in the amount of $53,300. So there are a couple members here tonight. We can, if you want to say any additional to what we've talked about, I definitely welcome your time. I know we're out of public comments, but I really value I think I valued your time, and so if you have anything additional to say along those lines, I definitely would welcome it. John?
The building was originally purchased to be torn down and to extend the library. It was an extension on the library to make it larger, and then the balance of it to make it a parking lot. And if we look at the whole situation right now, particularly with the park across the street, we need extra parking. You can have your Friday night entertainment, whatever. But the problem is the parking around there is horrendous. And that, even though it would be a library parking lot, would make a great parking lot for that too. The whole situation to me is just you look at that whole building. First of all, in order to, I think, to repair it or anything else, it would cost at least $200,000 to fix the place. It's a nightmare in there. And so, you can put $253,000 on the price tag, but there's nobody that's even going to come close to purchasing that thing at that price, because it is a tremendously deteriorated type of building. And, to me, we looked at it at one point in time to maybe give it to the fire department to let them go ahead and practice on it, but with the asbestos and all that stuff, that did not work out. So to me, it would just be to spend, and the money is there, to spend the $53,000, tear it down and make it what it is, and then the library eventually can extend out to it and then make it a parking lot.
So I definitely respect those opinions, and that's why we put the committee as a group, put together different options. I would say the one thing that I was mistaken in the beginning was where the addition would be. So a lot of people, I think, looking at the present library and looking at the building, thinking that the original idea for an expansion was going to be that side. It actually was going to be behind the library, and actually the present parking that they talked about would be behind. And so all that additional parking and additional building would still be fulfilled even with not using this space. So the building that is there right now would be just additional parking rather than what is actually already planned for, which was, to me, was knowledge to me when you start looking at the original plans. So that is one thing that's interesting along that line. And I think we also were kind of surprised at the condition of the house. There are some issues, but it's actually not as bad as what I originally thought. And I think so. I think that's why, as a committee, we really try to give you options, because when you then look at the maybes, like, well, maybe somebody's going to move in and it's going to be an eyesore next to the library, but you also look, maybe that somebody is going to move in, actually love a place that is 120 years old, and look at renovating it and actually making it a real positive for the community and next to the library. And you just don't know that. And with the housing shortage that we have, that's another, a maybe that you get a good house in a good neighborhood that looks good next to your library. And it may not be that way, but I think that's important to remember, that it's maybes. And I definitely respect your opinion, John, and I may be there with you, but I actually was surprised at how, the condition of the building, and then also we're looking at, what do we gain? So what I think one of the things are, what do we get? I think to keep it as a town basis, that's going to be a tough one for me to do. That option number 2, because that's going to be where the taxpayers, unless they really come to the forefront, that's putting out a major expense for them for a purpose that's unknown.
Especially for asbestos abatement and everything else.
Right. I think option number 2.
Well, when we originally, as former president of the Friends of the Library and stuff, when we originally made the decision to purchase this and that, it was primarily purchased was to get rid of it, make it because the library needs to be extended, and it's still in that situation. The library needs to be built out and extended, and make it part of the parking lot. That's what we originally did to it.
I see a flipper, the person to flip it. We got a housing shortage within the area.
Right.
Flip it for that.
Yeah, but if
But
you...
I want the issue too, the asbestos abatement, and trying to sell it, we won't get $150,000 or less for it.
No, but if you look at the pictures that we took that were running through that Michelle had put up there, that place is a total nightmare. I mean, it totally needs to be redone. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sure it does. But you've got some good points. I saw you starting to stay on Mr. Nichols, Paul Nichols of our. committee. So if you have anything to say, I think one of the things if I just may, is the fact that while we're looking at selling, while it would not be probably for a great profit, it would be for some profit and would recoup taxpayer dollars.
Wouldn't be
And
any
we're
profit.
never going to get back the $300,000. Oh my gosh, that was spent on that. But that's water on the bridge, can't turn back time. But we can do something to maybe not cost the taxpayers more money, so.
You want to echo that also. However, I believe that the town warrant did not specify what it was to be knocked down and made into a parking lot respectively. But the committee's really biggest issue was what can be done with that property that will not cost the town, but bring revenue back in. And potentially, the biggest goal was to put money back into that reserve account for the library. The first two options give us that opportunity. Demolishing it's just going to put another burden on. If somebody were to buy it, it puts it back on the tax rolls, which are about, correct me if I'm wrong, Michelle, but about $2,000 a year. Looking at, we also, which was beyond the scope of the committee, but what the library, we could always put a fence down there to deflect it, keep people out and going over. The library's parking lot is already, that's what it was surveyed for. It was surveyed for the parking lot and the potential addition. There's nothing, and the way I believe the article wrote is that you can get rid of it, which would be the council's decision on how you dispose of it. But there was no intent, to make another parking lot. It'd be ideal for that. However, I don't think that it is in the town's best interest in order to spend more money on money that we've already lost. And I just think there's a potential there to put money back into the library, and that was the goal. And that's what it was designed for, I believe, what the people understood when they voted on that article. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate your time on the committee.
My other concern too, if you sell it too, we have to take the first bid on it. Get it rid of it as soon as we can. Or to a timeline saying, okay, how long are we gonna have out there for sale?
Yeah.
But take the first bid.
And I think that was one of the things that we talked about, that we should have a sell-by deadline. And again, we're looking at not putting the town at any risk, because we're looking at selling as is, and not paying for inspection or closing costs, so.
Along lines of that, when we talked about a deadline, we had the option, we did discuss about possibly putting it out for bid. We did not want to do that right up front. We want to try to recoup as much as we possibly can from it. Some of us, and hypothetically speaking, I mean, $5 goes back into that reserve fund is better than none. That's just a small figure, but that was our biggest goal. To come up with some decisions where it would benefit the library.
And I have to put on, thank you, Paul. And I think I have to put on, there's a committee hat that we try to get to look at all these options and try to think about what would make, just make a or not even make a recommendation, to give the council options, right? So we've done our job. I think that was what I think I wrapped up our last meeting, was that we've done our job as committee. We've given options that are viable options. All three are viable options for the council. So then I have to put on my council hat and go, all right, what's the best option for the town as we move forward?
Yeah, I have a couple questions. First of all, what was the condition of the apartment at the rear of the house? Was that as bad as the main structure?
It's,
The photos of it are in
yeah.
there.
So are these all of the
That's all the
apartments?
photos.
Of
Yeah, that's the
all the
entire building.
apartments?
Yes.
So we're not really looking at the main house itself?
No, you're looking at the entire house.
Okay.
So the kitchen, the very last photo is the back kitchen. And then there's another
Yeah, because that's
kitchen
where the
photo.
apartment
Yeah.
was.
The apartment, most of that is the rooms that are paneling. I believe.
Yep, like the last one's the back apartment, the kitchen.
And some of, they're mixed, but, in there.
All right, and then my second question is, Michelle, has there been any interest in the house? Anybody asking about it to see if it's going up for sale?
Back when this was all originally discussed, when you created the committee, we did have someone that was interested in it at that time. I think it was the gentleman that owns the property next door. But nothing since then, because the committee's been actively working, so.
So we're looking at 1/4 of an acre roughly, a little bit more, for that house with access to Lawrence Avenue. I am not in favor of keeping it. I don't think that would be the way to do it. To have all the abatements that, or remediations that need to take place for asbestos and lead paint. I agree with Peter, we're not going to get the money. And then if it's even, $150,000, $175,000 for 1/4 of an acre, it'd be nice, but then again, we've got maybe $55,000 on just tearing it down, and 53, but that's an estimate as of right now.
In the long run, it would actually be more than that.
It would be
when you think
more
about
than
the
that.
fact that we then would have to have, Public Works would be responsible for filling in the hole created by the foundation. So it would be a little bit more than that. That 53, almost 54, does cover the asbestos abatement and the lead remediation, though.
Right.
Worst case scenario. So there's a couple of things that haven't been done. One, we have not funded a Phase 1 environmental assessment, which would be required prior to the asbestos abatement, because you have to know exactly what is asbestos in there. When I spoke with Mickey Wing, and this was just before he retired from Pine Tree, we said you do worst case scenario, knowing that there is asbestos in the roof tile, because that's the only thing that has been tested. I believe they went in, they took a look, and they assumed that potentially some of the flooring in the restrooms, bathrooms could be asbestos. And we believe that there was some pipe wrap in the basement that was asbestos. And knowing fairly certain that any painted surface in there contained lead, just because of the age of the building. So knowing what kind of procedures they would have to go through to remediate that asbestos prior to a tear down is what he did when they came up with that price. Just so that the committee had a number to work with and they knew what they were looking at. So that is what was done with that. The survey that has been done for the property to split the property has never been filed at the Registry of Deeds. So if you decide to sell it, that also needs to be done. I mean, it's a minimal Registry of Deed filing. But it hasn't been done simply because of the fact that the municipalities owned the entire piece of property and there was no need to file the split. So we would still need to file that split if you decided to sell it. If that is the route that you decide to go, I would strongly suggest that we schedule you an executive session at your next meeting so that you can discuss that and what your intentions are with that property. Because the last thing you want to do is sit here in a public meeting and discuss what your minimum offer price is. And executive session does allow for real estate sale conversations to happen. So we would schedule that and take care of all of that. And I would also suggest that we hire a realtor and we do that, and that's not something that we handle necessarily.
How much does a
in-house.
realtor cost?
Usually
Nothing.
they get their money from the sale.
Percentage
They
of
get their
sale?
money from the sale.
That's why, like I said, we was going to get much, because.
And I would strongly suggest that you hire the only person that we were able to get to come and give us the market analysis. So, seems only fair.
Yeah. Did you do that for free, or we had to pay?
Yes, that was at no cost.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so the committee did a really great job at investigating various different options for this property without spending any money.
Thank you for saying that.
They
Right.
worked very quickly, and they looked at a lot of different things. They made sure they understood the history of why we acquired the building. They looked at all of that. They looked at the building itself. They looked at different options, and they made sure that whatever they did didn't actually cost them anything in their process. So they did a great job.
And I'll thank Michelle publicly because she did a huge amount of legwork for trying to get the answers that we needed. So her and also Public Works and everybody else that was involved. But so it got the information that we needed. So I appreciate that. So I'm not sure what our next step is at this point. I mean, this is a workshop. I think we've provided you information as a committee to you now. So I'm trying to shift gears between committee and council. But I think the committee tried to give you options. As a council now, if I'm hearing these options, I have more insight because I've been dealing with it for a while, but you haven't. So I think you need to I think it should be an item that we need to vote on and come to a solution definitely by the next meeting. Or if you feel comfortable tonight, then so be it. But I think that's something we need to actually look at as an agenda item at the next meeting, which would make more sense.
I was just wondering how the other councilors feel about keeping it. Is this something that we could throw out? Because I'm definitely against it.
No.
Keeping it, I think, in my opinion, I think even on the committee, I think it was an option. We wanted to present that and talk about, but I think you'd have to have a lot of, first of all, you have the cost of upkeep, because we need to get that thing sealed so we don't have, folks vandalizing. And then you have to, you really need, I don't want to have it sitting there for another 10 years. And while we look at a purpose for it. So I think that's one of the biggest problems. We would only want to keep it if we had a specific item, a specific use for it, and a specific, fairly rapid timeline for.
Maybe what we could do for our next meeting is have two options to vote on. One would be to sell it, and another one to demo it. And then we take a vote on each one to see how it goes.
Right. Well, I would think the other aspect would be to go to a executive session.
We'll schedule
and
you an
discuss it.
executive
Before we
session.
do that,
Executive
go to
session.
executive session first.
All right.
Yes.
You'll have to publicly vote what you're going to do.
Right.
But for the details of it, we'll schedule an executive session for the next meeting.
Right.
Sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
Good night.
Good work.
Thank you. Again, it wasn't, I sat there and listened. I have a really smart and hardworking committee, and I just sat back and listened. They did a great job. So our last part is to discuss other council business. So John, do you have?
Nope.
Very good.
I was just wondering why we
Discuss-
got the Maine Municipal Association Risk Management.
Yeah, so I was going to bring up mine.
Oh, so I gave you a copy of that. Well, one, since now that I'm on the Property and Casualty Board, I get all kinds of great information on insurances. But they were able to acquire additional insurances for MMA's insurance members, which is quite, it's insurances that we never had and coverage that we've never had, which was a really good conversation and things that you now understand that we actually really need and didn't realize we were missing. I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but I think it was terrorism coverage, major event coverage. So if you think
Active
about,
shooter, malicious attack.
if you start to think about the major expenses that were actually involved with the mass shooting that happened in Lewiston, and the fact that there really was nothing for any coverage for any of that during that time frame. So it helps with those sorts of things. And I just really wanted to make sure that the council was aware that oftentimes what happens is we don't ever discuss what's going on with our insurances until budget season. And I just thought that it would be a nice piece of information for you to have about some things that are going on with our insurances and why our insurance rates are good for the coverage that we receive.
So does this mean that they'll be going up?
Not right now.
Not right now?
That's not the indication that they've given.
We'll see.
We'll see, right? I mean, everything goes up, but.
Yeah.
Also too, about this letter we
Yes.
received.
So-
Will
The
that
PFAS.
be another session on that, or?
Councilor Lawrence is discussing the PFAS letter from the Department of the Environmental Protection. And so there's a lot there. I have a little more access to it because I've been dealing with the committee, but we just received this letter this afternoon. I think it'd be a perfect for a workshop, probably to focus on that next time.
So you can
Right.
examine it some more.
Yeah, and I think for you get a chance to read, and I think on that end, so if there's other historical information that you need, Manager Flewelling would have all of our information from all our committee meetings, which are out there anyway, but if you need to have more, like, hey, what is this referring to, or is there more that, if you know, the why questions and the what questions, Manager Flewelling would be able to provide some of those from our committee meetings. Yeah.
To be continued.
To be continued. So, Councillor Thibodeau, anything else?
I have nothing.
Councillor Lorette.
Yes, I've got two things. The first one, I'm going to plug the concerts in the park again.
Yes.
I know we've had some questions online about what's there to do. This last one, the DE experience, had pretty good turnout. They were quite good. This Friday, Eric Lunt and some amazing, some wicked good friends will be playing this Friday at 6 o'clock. And then the second one, there have been conversations, I've seen some postings about opportunities to bring in a traveling dental hygienist office out of Lewiston called Tooth Protectors. So I had just asked them a few basic questions about what they require, because they do accept main care, they accept all other insurances, and I've seen some people asking, hey, who's got openings? And a lot of places are hard up right now on taking new clients. So we've got a need. I know through the Grange, we serve a specific demographic as well there, and there's a need. So I had done some digging, and there is no cost. They ask for a space to use. They ask for a place to fill their portable machines to clean. It's about the size of a 2-liter bottle. So I guess it's really a question of what we would need to do to look at allowing them to use the community center for free, to offer the community. They did mention to me they serve all ages, so kids would be a 15-minute appointment, adults 30 minutes. They ask us to just get a list of names, fill them with time slots, and they'll take care of the insurance.
So it doesn't take a lot to be able to, for them to be able to use it for free. They'd simply need to contact us and we could schedule them a time. I already have within the policy the authority to waive the fee for that, and just what their requirements would be. And then the best thing would be their ability to advertise and provide the space. But I think it definitely would be doable.
So would we have the ability to have the folks at the town office or somebody to take a call and say, yes, I'd like to sign up for this?
Yes, so we do things very similar to that already. So like household hazardous waste day or that kind of stuff,
Okay.
people have to call in, they fill out a sheet. So we would work with the provider to see what their time slots are, right? The only thing that we would be concerned about was making sure that we were not bringing in any sort of data that is forward requestable, HIPAA data, any of that kind of stuff. But to simply write somebody's name down on a sheet and be a clearinghouse for that, that's not a problem.
Okay.
Would this be something for just Fairfield residents or the area?
That's up to, I suppose, us to decide. They'll take whoever. I asked if they had minimums, they do not. They primarily do this at schools.
Right.
And offer this biannually. They have like electronic permission slips for families to send with their kids. But they're also opening to community centers and at-risk places that don't have a lot of options. And quite frankly, we have a foster kiddo who has main care, and trying to find a dentist right now, it's not happening.
I think it's great, Adam, and I appreciate you. I'm not sure if you had connections through PTA or and how that came about. So I think I appreciate you stepping up and just like exploring, and again asking how and why and what. But to me, I think it's be a great service, and partly to me, we're all about community, right? So to me, I don't care if it's a Fairfield resident, I don't care if it's a Benton resident, I don't care if it's a Bingham resident. If the kids provides a kid a chance to get their teeth taken care of, I think that's just a good thing, so. And if it looks good for Fairfield, and then we're actually providing that service and we're providing that opportunity, then it's great.
And maybe what we can do is actually book
Yes.
multiple sessions
Correct.
if they're open
Yep.
to that.
Yep.
Right, so that if maybe you can't make it this month, maybe you can make it next month or the next time that they're here. And that's a great thing for us to, a great service to be able to provide here at the community center.
Thank you, Adam.
Just have them, either have them get in touch with me or whatnot, and we can work out the details.
Perfect.
All set, Adam?
Yep.
Thank you very much. Peter?
This Saturday, the Grange is having their annual baked bean supper from 4:30 to 6, and it's $12 per person.
Nice. That'll be good. Thank you for that. For me, I guess a big one is that, again, I think, I guess, I've said it several times, but I'll say it again. I really enjoyed the open discussion of the 31 Lawrence Avenue Committee. I think we worked hard. We had different views, but we were able to continue to work together to at least give you options as a council. So I enjoyed that process. So I want to thank them again. So I think that's, again, that they did the town proud. And then for myself as well, the PFAS committee, so we'll have, I think it's nice to keep this moving forward. I think the committee has been working hard. There are some differing opinions on that committee, but again, it's nice because we allow a lot of discussion and we're moving forward, and hopefully we'll have a chance to look at these responses and then have some better recommendations for you sooner than later. But I think it's good to keep this moving forward. And for me, I think that's about it. It is actually my 31st anniversary, so I would like to finish up. So, anything else?
So I guess I anticipated that Library Director Alyssa Patterson would be speaking, but I know she wanted to speak about that event she's hosting with the Medicare piece. I think that's pretty important.
Oh, yeah.
I just think that
that'd be
Michelle
great.
and I were chatting about how critical this piece is for our community.
Yeah.
Not to be out of line,
No,
but.
no,
Well,
thank you.
nobody had any
Yeah.
questions for me, so I didn't jump up. Sorry about that. Yeah, we are having a representative from senior planning from out of Skowhegan coming on August 20th at 10:30 to talk about different main care options for seniors. The open enrollment time is coming up soon, so it's a good time for people to learn about different benefits that they might not know about. So we're pretty excited about that.
Alyssa, is there any sign up that's needed, or is it just?
No, there's no sign up.
Yep.
I don't think we're gonna get a crazy amount of people, so, yeah, just
That's August.
show up and, August 20th.
August 20th?
Yep, at 10:30.
At 10:30.
Yep.
Very good. And again, I appreciate like how expanding the reach of the library, and it's not just books. I think books are
Right,
books are
no,
wonderful.
it's not.
Right? Books are wonderful.
very important, but there's a lot of other
But
stuff.
there's a lot of stuff, and it's part of the heart of the community. It can be, and so I appreciate the hard work that you're doing to make that happen.
So there was a flyer that she just received today regarding that event. There's an event that's been created on the library's Facebook page, and we should hopefully have that information up in the town office as well as in the library hard copy soon, so.
Yes.
Very good.
And we are having our 123rd anniversary celebration tomorrow. If anybody wants to stop by anytime throughout the day for cake, chit-chatting about the library, sharing favorite memories, anything like that, we'd love to see anybody from the community.
What time's the cake?
That's that's all day.
All right.
That's all day.
Cake all day.
Important part. That's what I heard. All right.
Thank
That's
you.
where I will be tomorrow, just FYI. Don't call my office.
It starts at 10, right?
Yes.
Thank you very much, Alyssa. And thank you for pointing that out, Christine.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
I thought it was an important piece.
It was. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So at that point, the next regular meeting of the Fairfield Town Council will be on Wednesday, August 7th, 2024, to be held as a hybrid meeting in the council chambers and via Zoom at 6:30 PM. Recess at this time.
Open motion recess.
Second.
Very good.
Great, Nando's first.